Businesswoman visits her son's grave and sees a woman with a baby that looks just like him. Margaret Wilson was breathing heavily as she tried to hold back the tears that insisted on flowing. It had been exactly 1 year since her life had shattered, and that weekly visit to the cemetery was the only way she found to maintain a connection with her son Michael. That's when her eyes fixed on a young woman holding a baby just a few feet from Michael's grave. Margaret's heart almost stopped beating. That baby had the same striking features as Michael, the same delicate curve of the lips, the same dark and penetrating eyes. But what left her completely breathless was the small birthmark on the child's neck, identical to the one Michael had. "My God," whispered Margaret, her hands trembling as she leaned on the headstone. The young woman, a simple-looking girl wearing worn-out clothes, seemed to feel Margaret's fixed gaze. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and panic took over the girl's face. She clutched the baby to her chest and began to move away quickly. "Wait!" shouted Margaret, but her legs seemed to have lost all strength. The young woman stumbled in her haste, and a white embroidered handkerchief fell from her bag. Margaret managed to move and ran to where the fabric had fallen. When she picked it up, her hands trembled even more. Embroidered in golden thread were the initials M.W., Michael Wilson. Margaret looked around, but the young woman had already disappeared among the tall cypress trees of the cemetery. She held the handkerchief to her chest as she tried to process what she had just seen. That baby couldn't be a coincidence. The resemblance was too striking. "How is this possible?" she murmured to herself, looking at Michael's photo on the headstone. Throughout the following week, Margaret couldn't get that image out of her head. The baby in the red jacket, those eyes that were the spitting image of Michael, that birthmark that haunted her. She had kept the embroidered handkerchief on her bedside table and touched it every night before sleeping, as if it were a clue to a mystery she needed to unravel. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The following Thursday, Margaret arrived at the cemetery earlier than usual. She chose a discreet spot behind a large tree from where she could see Michael's grave without being noticed. She waited for over 2 hours until she finally saw her. The young woman arrived walking slowly, carrying the same baby in her arms. She knelt before Michael's grave and began to speak softly, as if she were talking to him. Margaret tried to get closer to hear what she was saying, but couldn't make out the words. The baby started to cry and the young woman rocked him gently, whispering a song. It was the same song Margaret used to sing to Michael when he was little. Her legs weakened and she had to lean against the tree trunk. "Who are you?" Margaret finally found the courage to approach. The young woman was startled and stood up quickly, protecting the baby against her chest. I need to go," the girl stammered, her eyes filled with tears. "You dropped this last week." Margaret extended the embroidered handkerchief. The young woman looked at the fabric and her tears intensified. "Please, leave me alone," she begged. "This baby." Margaret felt her voice falter. "He looks so much like my son." "I know who you are," the young woman finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You're Michael's mother." Margaret felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "How did you know my son?" I was a nurse at the hospital where he was staying." "A nurse?" Margaret tried to process that information. "What's your name?" "Jessica Brown." "Jessica, this baby." Margaret looked again at the child who was now watching her with curiosity. "How many months old is he?" 8 months. Margaret quickly did the math. Michael had passed away a year ago. If that baby was 8 months old, it meant he was conceived when Michael was still alive, during his hospitalization. "Jessica, I need to know the truth. Is this baby Michael's son?" Jessica lowered her head and began to cry silently. "Please, you wouldn't understand." "Try to make me understand," Margaret said in a softer voice, realizing that pressuring the young woman wouldn't get her anywhere. "Your son he was a very special person." Jessica finally looked into Margaret's eyes. "During the months he was hospitalized, we talked a lot. He knew he didn't have much time." Margaret felt a familiar pain in her chest. Even a year later, talking about Michael's condition was still devastating. He talked about you a lot, Jessica continued, about how he regretted not giving you the chance to be a grandmother. Grandmother? Margaret repeated the word as if it were in another language. Michael said you always wanted grandchildren, but that he never had a serious enough relationship for that to happen. Margaret remembered the countless times she had mentioned wanting grandchildren, how she would have liked to see Michael start a family. He always smiled and said that one day it would happen. Jessica, please, tell me the truth. Is this baby my grandson? The young woman held the baby tightly and nodded slightly. How is that possible? Did you two— It wasn't like that, Jessica hurried to clarify. Michael asked to freeze, to do the procedure before the treatment that made him weaker. He had hope of recovering and being able to start a family. Margaret felt her legs give way and had to sit on the bench near the grave. So he froze? Yes. And when he realized he wasn't going to recover, he asked me for a favor. What favor? Jessica hesitated before answering. He asked me to use his genetic material to have a baby. He said that way you would have a grandson, and a part of him would continue to live. Margaret looked at the baby, who was now smiling at her, showing 2 tiny teeth. It was impossible to deny the resemblance. You did that for him. I fell in love with Michael during the months I cared for him, Jessica confessed, tears streaming down her face. I know it might seem wrong, a nurse getting emotionally involved with a patient, but he was different. And you decided to have his baby. He begged me. He said it was the only thing he could leave for you, the only way for you to have a little piece of him forever. Margaret looked at the child and felt a mix of emotions she couldn't name. Anger, sadness, confusion, but also a strange sense of hope. How did you manage to do the procedure? Isn't that illegal? A friend of mine who works at a clinic helped me. Michael had everything documented, saying he wanted me to be the mother of his baby. And why did you never come to me? Why did I have to find out by chance? I tried, Jessica sobbed. After Nathan was born, I went to your company several times, but your secretary always turned me away. She said you didn't want to see anyone related to the hospital or Michael's illness. Margaret vaguely remembered her secretary, Susan, mentioning that some strange people had tried to speak with her in the months following Michael's passing. At the time, she had given strict orders not to be disturbed by anyone. Nathan? Asked Margaret. That's his name. Michael said if it was a boy, he wanted him to be named Nathan after your husband. Margaret felt her heart tighten. Nathan was indeed the name of her late husband, Michael's father. She had never told anyone at the hospital that. May I hold him? Jessica hesitated for a moment, but then handed the baby to Margaret. When the child was in her arms, Margaret felt something she hadn't felt in over a year, a sense of completeness. Nathan looked directly into Margaret's eyes and smiled, the same crooked smile that Michael used to have when he was a baby. Margaret began to cry, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. He smiles just like Michael, she whispered. He has many of his mannerisms, Jessica confirmed. Sometimes the resemblance scares me. Where do you live? In a boarding house downtown. I work as a house cleaner and also care for some elderly people at night to make ends meet. Margaret looked at Jessica's worn-out clothes, her worn-out shoes, her calloused hands. It was clear the young woman was going through financial difficulties. And Nathan's father, what did Michael say about me? He said you were the strongest woman he knew, that you had raised him alone after your husband passed away. He said you deserved to be a grandmother, that you would be a wonderful grandmother. Margaret continued rocking Nathan in her arms, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Jessica, how old are you? 27. And your family? Your parents? My parents died when I was a teenager. I have no one but Nathan. Margaret looked at this young woman who seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders and felt a pang of compassion. Did you love Michael? I did love him, Jessica corrected. I knew he could never love me the same way, but the moments we spent together during his treatment were the best of my life. And did he know about your feelings? Yes, and he was very kind to me, always treated me with affection. I think under other circumstances, maybe. Jessica didn't finish the sentence, but Margaret understood. Jessica, I need time to process all this. Could you give me your phone number? I don't have my own phone. I use the boarding houses when I need to. Margaret took a business card from her purse and wrote her personal number on the back. This is my number. Please call me tomorrow night. Jessica took the card with trembling hands. You're not going to try to take Nathan from me, are you? I don't yet know what I'm going to do, Jessica. I only know I need time to think. Margaret returned the baby to Jessica, but not before kissing his forehead gently. He smells just like Michael did when he was a baby, she murmured. When Margaret got home that night, she went straight to Michael's room, which she kept exactly as he had left it. She sat on his bed and picked up a photo of the two of them together. My son, what a situation you've left me in, she said to the photo. What do I do now? She spent the entire night awake, turning over the entire conversation with Jessica in her mind. Part of her was furious that Michael had made such an important decision without consulting her. Part of her was grateful that he had thought of her, and part of her was terrified of the implications of it all. The next day, Margaret could barely concentrate at work. Her business consulting firm required all her attention, but her mind was completely focused on Nathan and Jessica. At 8 in the evening, the phone rang. Margaret, it's Jessica. Hi, Jessica, how are you? Confused. I didn't sleep at all last night. Neither did I. Jessica, I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay? Of course. Do you have any proof that Nathan is really Michael's son? I have the DNA test I had done when he was born, and I also have the procedure documents. Could you show me those documents? I can. Do you want me to bring them to you? Actually, I'd like to see where you live. Could you give me the address? Jessica gave the address of the boarding house, and Margaret carefully wrote it down. May I come tomorrow after work? Of course, you're welcome. The next day, Margaret left work early and drove to the address Jessica had given her. It was a poor area of the city, with cramped houses and unpaved streets. The boarding house was an old, poorly maintained building. Margaret went up to the 3rd floor and knocked on the door of room number 12. Margaret! Jessica opened the door with Nathan in her arms. Please come in. The room was tiny, with only a single bed, a small wardrobe and an improvised crib made of wooden crates. There were clean baby clothes hanging on a clothesline stretched across the window. Sorry for the mess, Jessica said, clearly embarrassed. Don't worry, Margaret replied, though she was shocked by the conditions her grandson was living in. Jessica showed Margaret the documents she had mentioned. There were medical exams, receipts for the fertilization procedure, and the DNA test results confirming Michael's paternity. Jessica, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. How did you manage to pay for the procedure? It must have cost a lot. Jessica looked down. Michael sold his watch. It was an expensive watch that Mr. Nathan had given him. He said he wanted to use the money for this. Margaret remembered the watch. It was a prestige that had belonged to Michael's father, a family heirloom worth a small fortune. And where do you work now? I clean a few houses during the day and take care of Mrs. Eleanor, an 80-year-old lady, 3 nights a week. She lives nearby. And how do you balance work with taking care of Nathan? It's hard, Jessica admitted. Sometimes I have to take him with me. The employers don't like it much, but I have no choice. Margaret looked at Nathan, who was playing with a rattle made from tin cans. Even in such precarious conditions, the baby seemed happy and well cared for. Jessica, would you like to accept some help from me? What kind of help? Financial. I could pay for a better place for you to live. I can't accept that, Jessica replied immediately. I already feel bad enough about this whole situation. Why do you feel bad? You didn't do anything wrong. Yes, I did. I fell in love with a patient I was caring for. I used his genetic material to have a baby, and now I've come into your life in a completely inappropriate way. Margaret approached Jessica and gently touched her arm. Jessica, my son was preparing to leave. He knew he didn't have much time. The fact that he thought to leave me a grandson is one of the greatest acts of love he could have done. You're not angry with me. I'm confused, it's true, but I'm not angry. In fact, I'm grateful." Nathan started crying, and Jessica went to prepare a bottle. Margaret watched how she cared for the baby with so much affection and gentleness. "Can I ask you something?" Margaret said. "Of course." "Do you love Nathan?" "More than my own life," Jessica answered, without hesitation. "And are you afraid that I'll try to take him away from you?" "I'm very afraid," Jessica admitted. "You have money, influence. I have nothing to offer him except my love." "Jessica, I don't want to take Nathan away from you, but I would like to be part of his life." "What do you mean?" "I'm his grandmother. I'd like to be able to watch him grow up, to help with whatever is necessary." Jessica sat on the bed with Nathan in her arms and was silent for a long time. "You want to be his grandmother?" "More than anything in the world," Margaret replied sincerely. "And what would that mean exactly?" "It would mean that I could visit you, that I could help financially, that I could be a positive presence in Nathan's life. And I would still be his mother. Of course, you are his mother, Jessica. Nothing will change that." Jessica started crying again. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because you gave Michael the opportunity to leave me the greatest gift I could ever receive, and because I see how much you love my grandson." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the following weeks, Margaret began visiting Jessica and Nathan regularly. At first, the visits were formal, but gradually they became more natural and spontaneous. Margaret discovered that Jessica was an intelligent and determined young woman who had graduated from nursing school through great effort. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 16, and since then she had struggled alone to study and support herself. "Why did you choose to become a nurse?" Margaret asked one afternoon while they were playing with Nathan. "My mother was a nurse," Jessica replied. "She always said that caring for people was the noblest profession there is." "And do you like what you do?" "Very much. But it's hard to get a permanent job at hospitals. Most only hire for fixed terms." Margaret began to better understand the precarious situation Jessica was in. The young woman was qualified and hard-working, but the job market was tough for everyone. "Jessica, I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" "How about you and Nathan moving into the guest house on my property?" Jessica stopped playing with Nathan and looked directly at Margaret. "Guest house? It's a small but comfortable house at the back of my lot. It has 2 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen, and bathroom. It's been empty for years. I couldn't afford the rent for a house like that." "I'm not talking about rent. I'm talking about you living there in exchange for helping me with a few things." "What kind of things?" "Well, I'm a 70-year-old woman living alone in a big house. Sometimes I need help with household chores, shopping, things like that. And I'd also like to be able to spend more time with my grandson." Jessica fell silent, clearly considering the proposal. "You don't really know me. How can you trust me?" "Jessica, you took care of my son during the worst times of his life. You loved him when he needed love the most. And you're raising my grandson with so much affection, even while going through hardships. If that's not proof of character, I don't know what is." "And if it doesn't work out? What if we can't get along?" "Then you can leave whenever you want. It's not a prison, it's an opportunity." Nathan, as if understanding they were talking about him, crawled over to Margaret and pulled himself up using her legs to stand. Margaret picked him up, and he immediately grabbed her glasses. "I think he's voting for the move," Margaret laughed. Jessica also smiled, but still seemed hesitant. "Margaret, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you doing this? Why are you being so good to me?" Margaret looked at Nathan in her arms and then at Jessica. "Because you two are all I have left of Michael, and because I think he would be happy to know we're taking care of each other." That night, Jessica called Margaret. "Margaret, it's me, Jessica." "Hi dear, how are you? I accept your proposal." "Are you sure?" "I am. I think it will be good for Nathan to have more space to play, and for me it will be a relief not to have to worry about rent and bills." "Great. When would you like to move?" "Would this weekend be possible? I don't have many things to bring." "Of course, I'll arrange for the house to be cleaned and set up. I'll buy some things you'll need." Margaret, thank you. I promise I won't let you down. Jessica, stop calling me Mom. You can call me by my name. Okay, Margaret. The following Saturday, Margaret eagerly awaited the arrival of Jessica and Nathan. She had spent the entire week preparing the guest house, buying furniture for the baby's room, filling the refrigerator with food, and making everything perfect. When they arrived in a taxi, Margaret ran to help with the luggage. Jessica had only 2 small suitcases and a bag with Nathan's things. Is that all? Margaret asked, surprised. We don't have much, Jessica replied, a little embarrassed. Margaret showed them the house. Jessica was moved to see the room that had been prepared for Nathan, with a new crib, colourful mobiles, and a comfortable chair for breastfeeding. Margaret, you didn't have to do all this. Yes, I did. Nathan is my grandson. He deserves the best. And this room is for me? Jessica asked, looking at the main bedroom. Of course. And look here. Margaret opened the wardrobe. I bought some clothes for you. I hope they fit. Jessica began to cry when she saw the new clothes hanging in the closet. No one has ever done something like this for me. Now you're part of the family, Margaret said, hugging the young woman. The first few days of living together were a period of adjustment for both of them. Margaret was used to the silence and loneliness of her home, while Jessica was used to the freedom of doing things her way. Nathan, on the other hand, seemed to adapt immediately. He loved the spacious garden where he could crawl freely and was fascinated by the birds that came to drink water from the fountain. Margaret, can I ask you something? Jessica said one morning as they had coffee together. Of course. What was it like raising Michael alone? Margaret paused, stirring sugar into her coffee as she gathered her thoughts. It was hard. Nathan, my husband, passed away when Michael was just 5 years old. I had to learn to be both mother and father at the same time. And you never thought about getting married again? I did, yes. There were some interesting men over the years, but Michael was always my priority, and I was afraid a relationship might harm our bond. Do you regret it? Sometimes, yes, especially when Michael grew up and went on with his own life. The house became very quiet. Nathan, who was playing on the living room rug, made a little noise, and both women smiled. At least the house isn't quiet anymore, Jessica observed. That's true, and it's wonderful. As the weeks passed, Margaret and Jessica developed a comfortable routine. Jessica took care of the household chores in the morning, while Margaret worked in her home office. In the afternoon, they took turns looking after Nathan and went shopping together. Margaret was loving having a child in the house again. She had forgotten how rewarding it was to see a baby discover the world, take their first steps, and say their first words. Ba, 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 Nathan babbled as Margaret rocked him. He's trying to say something, Margaret noted. I think he's trying to say Grandma, Jessica suggested with a smile. Grandma? Do you think so? I'm sure. He loves you, Margaret. Just look at how he smiles when you come home. Margaret felt her heart warm. Being in Nathan's life was filling a void she didn't even know existed. One afternoon, while Margaret was in the garden playing with Nathan, she heard the doorbell ring. Jessica went to answer it and came back a few minutes later with a worried expression. Margaret, there's a woman outside who says she's your mother-in-law. Margaret felt her stomach churn. The mother of Nathan, her ex-husband, was a difficult woman she had cut off contact with many years ago. Mrs. Catherine, what does she want here? She's asking about the baby. She said she heard rumors that you were raising a child. Margaret sighed deeply. She knew this day would come. In a small town like theirs, it was impossible to keep secrets for long. Jessica, take Nathan inside. I'll talk to her. Margaret went to the front door where she found Catherine, a 75-year-old woman with a stern expression. Catherine, what a surprise to see you here. Margaret, I've heard some very strange rumors about you. They say you're raising a child who isn't your daughter. And what if I am? Would that be any of your business? Of course it would be. You're dishonoring the memory of my grandson Michael. How can you replace him with some random child? Margaret felt anger rising in her chest. Catherine, you lost the right to have an opinion about my life when you cut contact with me after Michael got sick. I couldn't bear to watch that boy waste away. It was too painful. And you think it wasn't for me? He was my only son. Catherine tried to peer over Margaret's shoulder to see inside the house. Where is this child? I want to see her. You're not going to see any child. And now please leave my property. Margaret, if you're really raising a child, people will talk. You have a reputation to maintain. My reputation is my business, Catherine. And now, if you'll excuse me. Margaret closed the door in the woman's face and leaned against it, breathing heavily. Jessica appeared in the living room with Nathan in her arms. Is everything okay? Yes. It was just an unpleasant person. But Margaret knew that wouldn't be the last unwanted visit. Catherine was known for spreading gossip around town, and it wouldn't be long before the whole community knew about Nathan. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The following week, Margaret began to notice curious looks when she went out with Nathan and Jessica. At the supermarket, the pharmacy, the bank, people whispered and discreetly pointed. Margaret, people are talking about us, Jessica observed during a visit to the pediatrician. I know, don't worry about it. But it could harm your business, your reputation. Jessica, my professional reputation is based on 30 years of serious and competent work. It won't be a baby that changes it. But internally, Margaret was worried. Some of her more conservative clients had already made subtle comments about changes in your personal life during meetings. One day, Margaret was in her office when her secretary Susan knocked on the door. Margaret, there's a call for you. It's from Mr. Richard from Thompson Metalworks. Richard Thompson was one of her biggest clients, a conservative and traditional man who had hired her services for over 10 years. Margaret, I need to talk to you about our contract. Of course, Richard, what's going on? I've heard some rumors about your personal life that have me concerned. Margaret felt her stomach tighten. What kind of rumors? They say you're living with a young single woman and raising her son as if he were your grandson. And what if I am? Would that affect the quality of my work? Margaret, you know I value our partnership greatly, but my company has a conservative image to maintain. I can't associate with situations that might cause scandal. Richard, my personal life has nothing to do with my professional work. Unfortunately, in a town like ours, everything is connected. I'm going to need to reconsider our contract. After hanging up the phone, Margaret sat in her chair for a long time. She had worked her whole life to build her company and her reputation. Would it be fair to lose all that because of Nathan? When she got home that evening, Margaret found Jessica preparing dinner while Nathan played in his playpen. How was your day? Jessica asked, but immediately noticed something was wrong from Margaret's expression. It was, complicated. Do you want to talk about it? Margaret told Jessica about Richard's call and her fears about the professional impact of their situation. Margaret, if this is causing problems for you, Nathan and I can leave. Jessica offered, tears in her eyes. No, Margaret answered immediately. I don't want you to leave. But your company. Jessica, I built my company over 30 years. If some prejudiced clients want to cancel contracts because of my personal life, that's their problem. I'll find other clients. Are you sure? I'm sure I won't give up my family because of other people's ignorance. Jessica approached Margaret and hugged her. Thank you for fighting for us. We're a family now, Jessica, and families fight for each other. That night, as Margaret lay in her bed, she reflected on how her life had changed in recent months. Before meeting Nathan, she was just existing, counting the days without much purpose. Now she had a reason to wake up every morning with joy. A few days later, Margaret had a meeting with her employees to discuss the company's situation. Everyone, you know we've lost some clients recently due to personal matters of mine. Margaret, we all support you, said Jennifer, her assistant of 15 years. What happens in your personal life doesn't change the fact that you're the best business consultant in the region. Thank you, Jennifer, but I need to be realistic. Maybe it's time to rethink our business strategy. What kind of strategy? Asked James, her accountant. Perhaps we should focus on younger clients, more modern companies that value competence over prejudice. That's a good idea, Jennifer agreed. We've been receiving several proposals from startups and tech companies. Then let's do it. Let's modernize our company and our target audience. In the following months, Margaret dedicated herself to renewing her company. She hired younger consultants, modernized her working methods, and began focusing on innovative companies. To her surprise, the new clients not only didn't care about her personal life, but found it interesting that she had reinvented her life at 70. "Margaret, congratulations on the courage to embrace late motherhood," said Lauren, CEO of a tech startup. "It's inspiring to see a woman your age embracing new experiences." Margaret didn't correct the misunderstanding about being Nathan's mother. It was easier to let people think what they wanted than to explain the whole complex family situation. At home, the relationship between Margaret and Jessica was becoming increasingly harmonious. They had developed a natural partnership in caring for Nathan and managing the household. "Margaret, can I ask you something?" Jessica said one afternoon as they watched Nathan take his first wobbly steps. "Of course." "Would you have liked to have more children?" "I always wanted a daughter," Margaret admitted, "but after Michael, my husband, passed away, it became difficult, and when I tried again a few years later, I found out I couldn't have children anymore." "Do you feel complete now?" Margaret looked at Nathan, who had just managed to walk 3 steps before sitting down, and then at Jessica. "For the first time in a long time, yes, I feel complete." Jessica smiled and moved closer to Margaret. "You know, I always wanted a mother figure in my life. My mother passed away when I was just becoming an adult, right when I needed feminine advice the most. And now? Now I feel I have that again. You're like a mother to me, too." Margaret felt her eyes filling with tears. "Jessica, you're like the daughter I always wanted to have." The 2 women hugged, while Nathan clapped his hands, as if celebrating the union of his family. Months later, on Nathan's first birthday, Margaret organized a party in the backyard. She invited some close friends, friendly neighbors, and co-workers who had become true friends. Nathan was beaming, running through the garden with his still wobbly little legs, exploring every corner of the party with curiosity. "Margaret, he is a beautiful child," commented Mrs. Rose, her closest neighbor, "and he's growing up so well cared for." "Thank you, Rose. Jessica is a wonderful mother. And you are a wonderful grandmother, too. You make a beautiful family." Margaret looked around the party. She saw Nathan being spoiled by all the guests, saw Jessica chatting animatedly with the other women, saw genuine smiles everywhere. "Jessica," Margaret called the young woman, "come here for a minute." "What is it?" "I wanted to show you something." Margaret led Jessica to her office and opened a drawer in her desk. From there, she took out a sealed envelope. "What is this?" "These are Nathan's adoption papers." Jessica's eyes widened. "Adoption? I would like to officially adopt Nathan as my grandson. This way, if anything happens to me, he will be entitled to the Wilson family inheritance." "Margaret, I don't know what to say." "Say you accept. Say you'll let me be Nathan's official grandmother." Jessica hugged Margaret tightly. "Of course I accept. It would be an honor. And there's one more thing." Margaret picked up another envelope. "These are the documents to transfer the guest house to your name." "Margaret, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. I want you and Nathan to have security. I want you to have a home that no one can take from you." "Why are you doing all this?" "Because you two saved my life, Jessica. Before Nathan, I was just waiting for time to pass. Now I have reasons to live, to dream, to plan for the future." They returned to the party hand in hand, finding Nathan in Jennifer's lap, who was reading a storybook to him. "Grandma," Nathan shouted upon seeing Margaret, stretching his little arms out to her. It was the first time he had said the word clearly, and all the people present applauded. "He said, 'Grandma,'" Jennifer exclaimed. "He said, 'Grandma.'" Margaret picked Nathan up and covered him with kisses. "Yes, my love, I am your grandma, and I will be forever." That night, after all the guests had left and Nathan was sleeping, Margaret and Jessica sat on the porch of the main house to talk. "Margaret, can I confess something to you?" "Of course. When Michael asked me to have a baby with him, I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. And now I know it was the best decision of my life. Not only because I gained Nathan, but because I gained you too. Jessica, you saved 2 lives when you decided to have Nathan, his and mine. How so, yours? I was withering away, my dear. After Michael's departure, I was just existing. I had no more dreams, no more plans. I was waiting for life to end. And now? Now I have a grandson to watch grow up, a daughter to care for, a company to modernize, a life to live. Jessica moved closer to Margaret and took her hand. Margaret, do you want me to keep calling you Margaret, or can I call you Mother? Margaret felt an intense emotion take over her chest. Would you like to call me Mother? I would like that very much, if you don't mind. I don't mind. It would be an honor to be your mother, Jessica. Then, good night, Mother. Good night, my daughter. 2 years later, Margaret was in her garden, watching Nathan play, when she heard the sound of a car arriving. She turned and saw a young man getting out of a car carrying flowers. Can I help you? Margaret asked. Are you Margaret Wilson? Yes, I am. My name is Robert Davis. I was a co-worker of Michael's. Margaret felt a pang of nostalgia upon hearing her son's name. Robert, I remember you. Michael talked a lot about you. I heard about Nathan through mutual friends. I came here to meet you, if you'll allow me. Of course. Nathan, come here, dear. Nathan, now almost 3 years old, ran to Margaret with his cheerful and talkative manner. This is Nathan, Margaret said proudly. Nathan, this is Robert, who was a friend of your dad, Michael. Nathan looked at Robert with curiosity. Did you know my daddy? Yes, I did, champ. Your daddy was a very special person. Robert knelt to be at Nathan's eye level. You know, I have some pictures of your daddy that I'd like to show you, if your grandma allows it. Nathan looked to Margaret for approval. Yes, you can, my love. Robert showed pictures of Michael at work, smiling and looking happy. Nathan gently touched one of the photos. Daddy was handsome, Nathan observed. Yes, he was, and you look just like him. Margaret felt her eyes getting teary. It was comforting to know that other people also held good memories of Michael. Robert, would you like to stay for lunch? Margaret offered. It would be an honor. During lunch, Robert told stories about Michael that Margaret hadn't heard before. He talked about how Michael was beloved by his co-workers, about his generosity and his good humor. You know, Margaret, Michael always spoke of you with great pride. He said you were the strongest woman he knew. Michael was a wonderful son. And he left a wonderful son too. Nathan is very much like him, not just in looks, but in personality as well. After lunch, Robert said goodbye but promised to return another time to visit Nathan. Margaret, may I say something? Of course. Michael would be very happy to know how well you're taking care of his son, and he would be very proud to see how you've built a beautiful family. When Robert left, Margaret reflected on his words. Would Michael really be proud? Had she made the right decisions? That night, Margaret was helping Nathan get ready for bed when he asked a question that took her by surprise. Grandma, why don't I have a grandpa? Margaret paused while brushing his teeth. You did have a grandpa, my love. His name was Nathan, just like you, but he went to heaven before you were born. Was he nice? He was very nice. Your daddy Michael liked him a lot. And is he in heaven with Daddy Michael now? Yes, dear. Are they watching over us from there? Margaret felt a deep emotion seeing Nathan's childlike wisdom. Yes, my love. They're always watching over us. Nathan smiled and snuggled into his bed. Grandma, I love you. I love you very much too, Nathan. More than you can imagine. When Margaret returned to the living room, she found Jessica folding Nathan's clothes. Jessica, can I ask you something? Of course, Mom. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Raising Nathan this way? Building this unconventional family? Jessica stopped folding clothes and looked directly at Margaret. Mum, Nathan is the happiest and most well-adjusted child I know. He has love, security, stability. He has a grandma who adores him and a mother who would give her life for him. How could that be wrong? It's just that sometimes I wonder if Michael would approve of all our decisions. Mum, Michael asked me to have this baby precisely so you would have a family again. He wanted you to be happy. Do you think he wouldn't approve of our happiness? Margaret smiled, feeling reassured. You're right. Michael wanted our happiness. And we are happy, aren't we? We're very happy. That year's Christmas, Margaret organized a big dinner at the main house. Besides Jessica and Nathan, she invited Jennifer and her family, Mrs. Rose, Robert, and some other close friends. Nathan, now 3.5 years old, was very excited about Santa Claus and the presents. He ran around the house showing each new toy to all the guests. "Grandma, look at the car Santa brought," Nathan shouted, pushing a new fire truck. "How beautiful, my dear. You've been a very good boy this year." Margaret watched the scene, her house full of laughter, lively conversations, the sound of a child playing. It was exactly what she had dreamed of during all those years of loneliness. "Margaret," Jennifer approached, "can I tell you something?" "Of course." "You look radiant. I haven't seen you this happy since before Michael got sick." "It's true, Jennifer. I feel like I've been reborn. And the company is doing very well too. The new clients love you. You know, Jennifer, I think when we find our true family, everything else falls into place too." True family. Yes, family isn't just blood. It's love. It's choice. It's commitment. Jessica and Nathan are my true family. After dinner, when all the guests had left, Margaret, Jessica and Nathan sat in the living room to open the last presents. "Nathan, this present is special," Margaret said, handing a large box to her grandson. Nathan opened the box and found a new photo album. "What is it, Grandma?" "They're pictures of your dad, Michael, from when he was a baby, until he went to heaven." Nathan carefully flipped through the album, touching each photo as if it was something precious. "This was my dad when he was little like me." "Yes, it was. You look very much alike." "And this picture? This is from the day your dad was born." Grandpa Nathan was so happy he cried with joy. Nathan kept looking at the photos, asking questions about each one. Margaret answered patiently, telling stories about Michael and keeping his memory alive for his son. "Grandma, is my dad watching us now?" "Yes, my dear, and he's very happy because you're a good boy and because we're a happy family." "I want to talk to him." "You can talk. He's listening." Nathan looked up and said, "Hi, Dad Michael, I love you. Thank you for giving me Grandma Margaret and Mom Jessica. We're very happy." Margaret and Jessica looked at each other with tears in their eyes. "I think he heard," whispered Jessica. "I'm sure he did," confirmed Margaret. 3 years later, Nathan was starting school, and Margaret realized they needed to have a more serious conversation about their family history. "Nathan, come here. I want to talk to you about something important." Nathan, now 6 years old, approached with his serious, important talk expression. "What is it, Grandma?" "You know your story is a little different from other boys, right?" "Because my dad went to heaven before I was born." "That too. But there are other things. You know, some boys have their dad and mom living together, others have just their dad or just their mom, and you have your mom and grandma." "And is that bad?" "No, my dear. It's not bad or good. It's just different. And I want you to know you can ask me anything about our family." "Grandma, why does Mom Jessica sometimes call you Mom?" Margaret realized Nathan was growing up and becoming more observant. "Because I adopted Mom Jessica as my daughter, just like I adopted you as my grandson." "So you're not my real family?" Margaret felt her heart tighten. "Nathan, look at me. Real family isn't just who you're born with. Real family is who loves, who cares, who chooses to stay together. I chose you, and you chose me. That makes us a more real family than many families who were born together." Nathan thought for a moment. "So we're a special family. We're a very special family. I like being special." "I like it too, my dear." The following year, when Nathan was 7, Margaret received an unexpected call. "Margaret? It's Dr. Sarah from St. Joseph's Hospital." Margaret felt her stomach turn. It was the hospital where Michael had been treated. "Doctor, Sarah, how can I help you?" "Margaret, we found some of Michael's personal documents that had been mistakenly stored. Would you like to come pick them up?" "What kind of documents?" "They're letters he wrote during his hospitalization. There's also a video he recorded." Margaret felt her heart race. "Can I come get them today?" "Of course. I'll be here until 5 in the afternoon." Margaret went immediately to the hospital, bringing Jessica along. When Dr. Sarah handed over a folder with the documents, Margaret felt her hands trembling. He asked for these to be given to you 1 year after his passing, but there was some confusion with the documents, and they ended up being filed by mistake. Margaret opened the folder and found several handwritten letters and a flash drive. What's on the flash drive? A video he recorded for you. We didn't watch it, of course. It's personal. When they got home, Margaret and Jessica sat in the office to look through the documents. The letters were addressed to Margaret, to Jessica, and one to Nathan. Let's read ours first and then decide when to show Nathan his, suggested Margaret. They opened Margaret's letter first. My dear mother, if you're reading this, it means my plan worked, and you've met Jessica and Nathan. I hope you're not angry with me for making this decision without consulting you, but I knew you would try to convince me not to do it. Mum, you always wanted to be a grandmother. I remember you looking at babies on the street with that sparkle in your eyes. I remember you saving my old baby clothes for when you give me grandchildren. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving without giving you that. Jessica is a special person. During the month she cared for me, I saw in her a genuine kindness that's rare to find. She loved me at my worst, treated me with dignity when I could barely care for myself. If anyone deserves to be the mother of my child, it's her. I know our situation isn't conventional, but I hope you'll open your heart to them. Jessica needs a family as much as you need her. You two can take care of each other. Mom, thank you for everything you did for me. You were the best mother a son could have. Now, be the best grandmother a grandson could have. With all my love, Michael. Margaret finished reading the letter with tears streaming down her face. He knew, she whispered. He knew exactly what he was doing. Jessica opened her letter. Dear Jessica, if you're reading this, it means you decided to have our baby and that you found my mother. I hope you're getting along well. Jessica, thank you for accepting this crazy request. I know it wasn't easy to make this decision, but you were always brave. It's one of the things I admire most about you. My mother might seem strict at first, but she has a huge heart. She's lost so much in life, her husband and now her son. She needs a family again, and you can be that family. Take care of our son, but let my mother help. She has so much love to give and so much wisdom to share. Together you two can give our baby something neither of you could give alone, a complete family. Jessica, thank you for loving me in my final months. You brought light to my darkest days. Now bring that light to my mother too, with love and gratitude, Michael. After reading the letters, they inserted the flash drive into the computer. On the screen appeared Michael, visibly weakened but with a smile on his lips. Hi, Mom. If you're watching this, it means you've met Jessica and my son. I hope he looks like me, so you can see a little bit of me in him every day. Mom, I know my decision might have shocked you at first, but I hope you understand now. I wanted to leave you with something more than sad memories. I wanted to leave you hope, future, joy. Jessica, if you're watching this with my mother, thank you for everything. Thank you for agreeing to be the mother of my son. Thank you for giving my mother a chance. Thank you for building the family I always dreamed of giving you too. Take care of each other. You both deserve all the happiness in the world, and take good care of my boy. Teach him that true love is what we choose, not just what we inherit. I love you. I will always love you. The video ended, and the two women embraced, crying and laughing at the same time. He planned everything, said Jessica through tears, every detail. My son was truly special, confirmed Margaret, and he gave us the perfect family. At that moment, Nathan came running into the office. Why are you crying? We're crying from happiness, my love, explained Margaret, wiping away her tears. Why? Because we just received a letter from your daddy Michael. Nathan's eyes widened. A letter for me too? There's a letter for you too. Do you want us to read it together? Yes. Margaret opened the letter addressed to Nathan. My dear son, you haven't been born yet as I write this, but I already love you more than I can explain. I know I won't be able to watch you grow up, but I want you to know some important things. First, you are very loved. Your mommy Jessica loves you, your grandma Margaret loves you, and I love you, even though I'm in heaven. Second, you have a special family. Your grandma Margaret is the strongest and most caring woman in the world. Your mommy Jessica is the sweetest and most dedicated person there is. They will take very good care of you. Third, always be kind to people. The world needs more kindness. Fourth, study hard and be curious about everything. Learning new things is one of the best parts of life. Fifth, when you miss me, look at the stars. I'll be there, watching over you. I love you, my son. Be happy. Daddy Michael. Nathan listened to the entire letter in silence, processing every word. Daddy Michael loves me even though he's in heaven? He loves you very much, my love, confirmed Margaret. And will he see me when I look at the stars? Yes, he will, said Jessica. Then tonight I'm going to look at the stars and talk to him. That's a great idea, agreed Margaret. That night, Margaret, Jessica and Nathan went up to the house's rooftop to look at the stars. Nathan pointed to the brightest star. Is that one Daddy Michael? It could be, said Margaret. What do you think? I think it is. It's blinking at me. Nathan waved at the star. Hi, Daddy Michael. It's me, Nathan. I'm growing a lot and being a good boy. Grandma Margaret and Mommy Jessica take very good care of me. Thank you for giving them to me. I love you. Margaret and Jessica exchanged emotional glances. Michael had managed to build exactly the family he dreamed of for all of them. Grandma, Nathan said, still looking at the stars, when I grow up I want to be just like Daddy Michael. What do you mean, my love? I want to make people happy like he did. He made you happy by giving me to you, made Mommy Jessica happy by letting her be my mother, and made me happy by giving you two to me. Margaret felt her heart overflowing with love and pride. My grandson, you're already making people happy. Every day you make me and your mother very happy. Really? Really? And I'm sure your Daddy Michael is very proud of you. 2 years later, on Nathan's 9th birthday, Margaret organized a garden party. Nathan had grown into an articulate, intelligent, and caring boy. During the party, Margaret watched Nathan playing with friends and talking with the adults present. She noticed how he had inherited Michael's kindness and charisma. Robert, who had become a regular visitor, approached. Nathan is a special child. Yes, he is. He has a lot of Michael in him, and a lot of you too. The way he treats people, his manners, his intelligence. It's clearly the result of the upbringing you're providing. Jessica and I do our best, and you succeed. You three make a beautiful family. That night after the party, Nathan was getting ready for bed when he asked a question that surprised Margaret. Grandma, when I grow up, can I always live near you? Of course, my dear. Why? Because I don't want to leave you alone, just like Dad Michael didn't want to leave you alone. Margaret felt a deep emotion. Nathan, you'll grow up, you'll study, maybe you'll want to see other places, you'll get married, you'll have your own children. That's how life works. But I'll always come back home, right? Always. This will always be your home and will always be your family. And when I have children, will they call you great-grandma? Margaret laughed, imagining the scene. God willing, yes. I want to have lots of children so you can have lots of great-grandchildren. Why? Because you like taking care of children. You're happy when you take care of me. Margaret hugged Nathan tightly. My dear grandson, you're very wise for a 9-year-old. Mom Jessica says I take after you and Dad Michael, and she's right. 3 years later, when Nathan turned 12, Margaret noticed he was entering adolescence and starting to ask more complex questions about his origin. Grandma, can I ask something kind of personal? Of course, Nathan, you can ask anything. How exactly did Dad Michael ask Mom Jessica to have a baby for him? Were they dating? Margaret realized it was time for a more mature conversation. No, my dear, they weren't dating. Dad Michael was very sick and he knew he wasn't going to recover. He really wanted to leave a child to continue the Wilson family. And then he asked Mom Jessica? Yes, because during the months she cared for him in the hospital, he realized she would be a wonderful mother. And she agreed even though they weren't dating. She did, because she fell in love with Dad Michael and wanted to help fulfill his dream. Nathan was thoughtful for a moment. Grandma, does that mean I was very much wanted? Very, very much wanted. You were dreamed of by Dad Michael. planned by him, and loved by all of us, even before you were born. So it wasn't an accident? Not at all. You were your father's greatest love project. Nathan smiled, seeming satisfied with the answer. I like knowing I was planned with so much care. And you should, because it shows how special you are. At that time, Margaret was already 75 years old and beginning to think about the future of the family she had built. Jessica, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it, Mom? I'm already approaching 75. Although I feel well now, I need to plan for the future. I don't like thinking about that. I know, dear, but it's important. I want you to know that all my inheritance will be divided between you and Nathan. Mom, let me finish. The company will go to you. I know you've learned a lot about the business over all these years helping me, and the main house will go to Nathan for when he starts his own family. You can't talk like that. You're going to live many more years. I hope so. But if something happens, I want you both to know you're protected. Mom, can I say something? Of course. You completely changed my life. Before I met you, I was just a single nurse struggling to get by. Now I'm part of a family. I have a stable career. I have security. But more than that, I have a mother who loves me. Jessica, you changed my life too. You gave me a new purpose, a new family, a new love. We saved each other, didn't we? Yes, we did. And we saved Nathan too, by giving him a family full of love. That same year, Margaret decided to take a special trip with Jessica and Nathan. She wanted to take them to see the city where Michael had been born and raised. Why are we going there, Grandma? Nathan asked during the trip. Because I want you to know your roots, my love. I want you to see where your daddy played when he was a child, where he went to school, where he grew up. And are we going to visit Grandpa Nathan's grave too? Yes, we are. During the trip, Margaret showed Nathan the house where Michael had been born, the school he attended, the places where they used to go for walks together. Grandma, was Daddy Michael just like me when he was little? Exactly the same, curious, talkative, affectionate. He loved asking questions about everything. Just like I do. Exactly like you do. When they visited the grave of Nathan's grandfather, Margaret placed fresh flowers and knelt for a silent prayer. Grandma, what are you telling Grandpa Nathan? I'm telling him about you, about how well you're growing up, about how happy we are. Nathan knelt beside Margaret. Can I talk to him too? Of course, my love. Hi, Grandpa Nathan. It's me, your grandson, who has the same name as you. Grandma Margaret says you were really cool. I wish I could have met you, but I know you're in heaven watching over me along with Daddy Michael. Thank you for taking care of our family. Margaret listened to Nathan's prayer with a heart full of emotion. That boy had learned to honor his family and his origins in such a natural and loving way. Back at home, Nathan was more thoughtful than usual. What are you thinking about, my love? Jessica asked. I'm thinking that I'm very lucky. Why? Because even though I never met Daddy Michael and Grandpa Nathan, I know they love me. And I have you two here with me, loving me too. It's like I have 4 people loving me at the same time. Margaret and Jessica exchanged emotional glances. Nathan had perfectly understood the concept of family they had tried to build. You're right, my son, said Jessica. You are very loved by many people. And I love you too, so much. 2 years later, when Nathan was 14, he came home from school with news that made Margaret very proud. Grandma, Mom, I have some news to share. What is it, my love? Margaret asked. I was chosen to represent the school in the essay contest about family. That's wonderful, exclaimed Jessica. What are you going to write about? I'm going to write about us, about how our family is special because it was built with love, not just by blood. Margaret felt her eyes well up with pride. And what will the title of your essay be? The Family That Love Built. It's a perfect title, said Margaret. Can I read you what I've written so far? Of course. Nathan took his notebook and began to read. My family isn't like most families. We don't have a mom and dad living together. We weren't all born from the same blood. We don't follow the traditional model. But we have something that many traditional families don't have. We are a family that was consciously built by love. My father, Michael Wilson, knew he would leave this world before seeing me born. But he didn't want his mother, my grandmother Margaret, to be alone, so he planned my existence as a gift of love for her. My mother, Jessica Brown, agreed to have a baby with a man she loved, but who couldn't stay with her. She did this out of love for my father, and love for the idea of forming a family. My grandmother Margaret welcomed me not just as a grandson, but as a second chance to have a complete family. She adopted my mother as her daughter, and adopted me as the grandson she had always dreamed of having. The three of us chose each other. We are not together out of obligation or by accident. We are together because we decided to be a family, because we take care of each other, because we love each other unconditionally. My family taught me that true love is a choice we make every day. It's choosing to care, choosing to forgive, choosing to stay together even when it's hard. I know my father Michael is proud of the family he created for us. I know he smiles from heaven when he sees how happy we are together. And I know our family, although different, is perfect for us. Margaret and Jessica were crying when Nathan finished reading. "Nathan, this is beautiful," said Margaret. "You managed to express exactly what our family represents." "You're definitely going to win this contest," added Jessica. "It doesn't matter if I win or not," said Nathan. "What matters is that it's true. We really are a family built by love." 2 weeks later, Nathan came running home with an envelope in his hand. "Grandma, Mum, I won." "Won what?" Margaret asked, although she already knew the answer. "The writing contest. My essay was chosen as the best." Margaret and Jessica hugged Nathan enthusiastically. "We are so proud of you," said Jessica. "And there's more," continued Nathan excitedly. "They want me to read my essay at the awards ceremony at school." "What an honor," exclaimed Margaret. "And you'll be there to watch me, right?" "We wouldn't miss it for the world," Margaret assured. On the night of the ceremony, Margaret and Jessica dressed up especially for the occasion. It was a moment of great pride for the whole family. When Nathan went on stage to read his essay, Margaret felt intense emotion. Seeing him there, speaking about their family with so much pride and affection, was confirmation that all the decisions they had made were right. "My family isn't like most families," Nathan began to read, his voice clear and confident. Margaret looked around the auditorium and saw that many people were moved by Nathan's words. Some mothers were discreetly wiping away tears. When Nathan finished reading, the entire auditorium stood up in applause. Margaret and Jessica applauded with tears of pride in their eyes. "Our family, although different, is perfect for us," Nathan's last words echoed in the auditorium. After the ceremony, several people approached Margaret and Jessica to congratulate them. "You must be very proud," said the school principal. "Nathan is an exceptional young man." "We are very proud," confirmed Margaret. "He is a special boy." "And your story is truly inspiring. It shows that family can take many different forms." On the way back home, Nathan was beaming. "Grandma, did you see how people liked our story?" "Yes, I did, my love. You spoke very well." "Some people came to ask me if our family is real or if I made it up." "And what did you say?" "I said it's real, and that we're the happiest family I know." Margaret smiled, looking at Nathan in the back seat through the rearview mirror. "And you're right. We really are very happy." That night, Margaret was in her room organizing the photos from the ceremony when Jessica knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" "Of course, dear, come in." "Margaret, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me for what?" "For believing in us from the beginning, for opening your home and your heart to me and Nathan." "Jessica, I should be thanking you. You turned 2 lives that were adrift into a prosperous and happy family. We transformed each other, Jessica. It was a joint effort." Jessica sat on the bed next to Margaret. "You know, sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't accepted Michael's request." "Don't think about that. What matters is that you did." "But I can't help but imagine you would be alone. I would be struggling to survive, and Nathan would never have existed." "But that didn't happen. We're here, we're happy, we're a family." "That's true. And you know what moves me the most?" "What?" "Seeing how Nathan speaks about us with so much pride. He truly believes we're a perfect family." "And aren't we?" "Yes, we are. We're perfect for each other." Margaret took Jessica's hand. "Jessica, I want you to know you're not just my grandchild's mother. You're my daughter at heart, my companion, my family. You're also my mother at heart, Margaret. The best mother I could have." The two women embraced, silently celebrating the extraordinary family they had built together. The following year, when Nathan turned 15, he made a decision that surprised Margaret. "Grandma, I want to pay a special tribute to my dad Michael on my birthday." "What kind of tribute, my love?" "I want to plant a tree in the garden in his memory, a tree that will grow and become strong, just like he wanted me to be." Margaret was moved by the idea. "It's a beautiful tribute, Nathan. What kind of tree do you want to plant?" "I did some research and I think a golden maple would be perfect. It's a strong American tree with beautiful flowers. It's a perfect choice." On Nathan's birthday, the whole family and close friends gathered in the garden for the tree planting ceremony. Nathan gave a speech before planting the sapling. "This tree is for my father, Michael Wilson, who planted the seeds of love that became our family. Just as this tree will grow and provide shade and beauty for our home, Dad Michael's love continues growing in our hearts and giving strength to our family. Dad, thank you for thinking of us before you left. Thank you for creating our family. This tree will be our way of always remembering your love." Margaret and Jessica helped Nathan plant the sapling, and all present threw some soil over the roots. "Now we'll take care of it with the same affection we have for each other," said Margaret. "And when it grows big and strong, I'll tell my children about Grandpa Michael, whom they never met, but who made all this possible," Nathan added. That evening, Margaret was on the porch looking at the spot where they had planted the tree when Nathan joined her. "Grandma, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, my love." "Sometimes I talk to Dad Michael." "What do you mean?" "When I'm confused or sad, I look at the sky and talk to him, and I always feel like he answers me in some way." "And what do you feel he tells you?" "That he's proud of me, that he loves our family, and that he's happy because he managed to give us to each other." Margaret hugged Nathan. "I'm sure he really is proud of you, my grandson. You've become exactly the kind of man he would have wanted you to be." "How do you know?" "Because you're kind, caring, intelligent, and have a generous heart, all the qualities Dad Michael had. Do you think when I grow up I'll find someone to love like Dad Michael loved Mom Jessica? I'm sure you will. And when that happens, you'll know how to build a family full of love, because you learned by watching the three of us. I want to build a family just like ours." "What do you mean?" "A family where everyone chooses each other, where everyone truly loves each other, where everyone takes care of one another." Margaret smiled, realizing that Michael had managed to create not just a family, but a legacy of love that would continue through Nathan. "And you will succeed, my love, because you learned that family is about love, not about rules or conventions." 5 years later, Nathan was 20 years old and studying medicine, inspired by the story of how Jessica had cared for Michael. "Grandma, I've chosen my specialization," Nathan announced during dinner. "What did you choose?" asked Margaret. "Oncology. I want to care for sick people like Mom Jessica cared for Dad Michael." Jessica was moved. "Nathan, that's very emotionally difficult." "I know, Mom, but I want to make a difference in people's lives during their hardest moments, like you both did in mine." "I'm very proud of you," said Margaret. "Your father would be proud too." "You know what else? When I graduate, I want to open a clinic that offers compassionate care, where doctors don't just see the illness, but the whole person." "That's a beautiful dream, my son," said Jessica, "and you'll both help me, Grandma Margaret with the administrative part, and you, Mom, as head nurse." Margaret and Jessica exchanged glances, touched by Nathan's plans. "It would be an honor to work with you," said Margaret. "For me, too," Jessica agreed. 2 years later, Nathan met a young psychology student named Emily during a volunteer project at the hospital. "Grandma, Mom, I want to introduce someone to you," Nathan said one afternoon, arriving home with a brunette young woman with a gentle smile. "This is Emily, my girlfriend." Margaret and Jessica welcomed Emily warmly and quickly realized she was a special young woman. "Emily, Nathan told us you met while volunteering," said Margaret. "Yes. We were helping hospitalized children. I was impressed by the caring way Nathan treated each child." "He's always been like that," Jessica said proudly. caring and attentive to everyone. During dinner, Emily showed interest in the family's story. "Nathan told me how you became a family. It's a beautiful story." "It's a story of much love," Margaret confirmed. "And it taught me that family can take many different forms," added Emily. "Do you have family?" asked Jessica. "I have my parents and a younger brother. But I've never seen a bond as strong as the one between you three." Margaret realized Emily was a mature and sensitive young woman, exactly the kind of person who would be perfect for Nathan. In the following months, Emily became a constant presence in the house. She got along well with everyone, helped with household chores, and showed genuine affection for the family. "Margaret, may I ask a question?" Emily said one afternoon, while helping prepare dinner. "Of course, dear. How did you manage to build such a harmonious relationship? You three get along so well." "With lots of conversation, lots of respect, and lots of love," Margaret replied, "and mainly with the awareness that we are a gift to each other. Nathan told me that before you found each other, you were all alone in some way. It's true. I had lost my son, Jessica had no family, and Nathan didn't even exist yet. But when we came together, each of us found exactly what was missing in our lives. It's as if you were puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly." "That's a perfect analogy, Emily." 1 year later, Nathan surprised the whole family during Christmas. "Everyone, I have a special gift to give today," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Margaret, Jessica, and Emily looked on curiously. "Emily," Nathan knelt before his girlfriend, "will you marry me?" Emily began to cry with emotion. "Yes, of course, yes." Margaret and Jessica applauded emotionally as Nathan placed the ring on Emily's finger. "Welcome, officially to the family," said Margaret, hugging Emily. "Thank you for accepting me," replied Emily. "You're the family I've always dreamed of having." "Now we're 4, Jessica observed happily. "And soon maybe we'll be more," Nathan said with a mischievous smile. "Nathan," Margaret pretended to be scandalized. "One thing at a time." That night, Margaret was on the porch looking at Michael's tree, which had grown considerably, when Jessica joined her. "What are you thinking about?" asked Jessica. "I'm thinking about how Michael would be happy if he saw our family today." "He is watching," said Jessica with certainty. "How do you know?" "Because I feel his presence in the important moments. I felt it when Nathan was born. I felt it when he won the writing contest. I felt it today when he got engaged." "I feel it too," admitted Margaret. "It's as if he were always with us." "He really is. Through Nathan, through the love we built, through the family he dreamed of." Margaret looked at the tree, its leaves gently swaying in the night breeze. "Michael, thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us each other." A year later, Margaret was helping Emily choose her wedding dress when the young woman made an emotional confession. "Margaret, I want you to be my matron of honor." "Me?" Margaret was surprised. "But what about your mother?" "My mother will walk me down the aisle, but I want you to be my matron of honor because you're the one who inspires me most as a woman and as a family member." Margaret was moved. "It would be an honor, Emily. And there's one more thing. Nathan and I decided we want to say our vows in your garden, under Michael's tree." "Under the tree?" "We want him to be part of our wedding too. After all, if it weren't for him, our family wouldn't exist." "Emily, that's beautiful. I'm sure Michael would approve." "I hope so. I want our family to keep growing with the same love you taught me." Nathan and Emily's wedding was intimate and moving. The ceremony took place in Margaret's garden, under the shade of Michael's tree, which was now well grown and full of golden flowers. When Nathan made his vows, he looked directly at the tree. "Emily, I promise to love you with the same true love that my father Michael taught our family. I promise to build with you a family based on love, respect, and the conscious choice to be together. And I promise that our children will know the story of the special man who made our family possible." Emily, in turn, looked at Margaret and Jessica during her vows. "Nathan, I promise to love you and our family with all the dedication I learned from watching Margaret and Jessica. I promise that our home will always be a place of love, acceptance, and unity, just like the home where our story began." During the celebration, Margaret watched the whole family gathered. Jessica dancing with Nathan, Emily chatting animatedly with the guests, everyone laughing and celebrating under the tree they had planted in memory of Michael. This is exactly how Michael imagined it, Margaret thought to herself. That night, after all the guests had left, Margaret, Jessica, Nathan and Emily sat in the garden for one last toast. "A toast to family," said Nathan, raising his glass. "To the family we choose and that chooses us," added Emily. "To the family that love built," said Jessica. "And to Michael, who made all this possible," concluded Margaret. 2 years later, Margaret was in her office when she received a call from Nathan. "Grandma, can you come to the hospital? There's a surprise for you." "What happened? Is everything all right?" "Everything's great. Just come, please." Margaret went to the hospital immediately, worried. When she reached the room Nathan had indicated, she found Emily lying in bed with a baby in her arms. "Grandma Margaret, I'd like to introduce your great-granddaughter," said Nathan with a radiant smile. Margaret approached the bed with tears in her eyes. "A girl. And her name is Michelle, in honor of the great-grandfather she never met, but who made our family possible." Margaret took the baby in her arms and immediately noticed the familiar features. "She has Michael's eyes," she murmured. "And Grandma Margaret's chin," observed Emily. Jessica came running into the room. "Sorry I'm late. How's our princess?" "Perfect," said Margaret, unable to stop looking at Michelle. "Now we are 5, observed Nathan happily. 5 generations of love," said Jessica emotionally. That evening, Margaret was at home looking at photos of her new great-granddaughter when Nathan came for a visit. "Grandma, I want to talk to you about something." "What is it, my love?" "Emily and I were thinking, how about Michelle growing up near you? We could build a house in the backyard. You would like to live here. We would love to. We want Michelle to have the same loving upbringing that I had, and we want you to be an active part of her life." Margaret was moved by the proposal. It would be wonderful to have a child in the house again. "Then it's decided. We'll build our house here, and Michelle will grow up surrounded by 4 people who love her very much. Just like you grew up," observed Margaret. "Just like I grew up. And when she's older, we'll tell her about her great-grandfather Michael, who had the idea to create our crazy and wonderful family." 6 months later, the new house was ready, and Nathan, Emily, and Michelle moved onto Margaret's property. The family's routine changed again, now with a baby to brighten the days. Margaret loved taking care of Michelle while Nathan and Emily worked. Jessica had become the official babysitter, teaching her granddaughter all the tricks she had learned raising Nathan. "Jessica, have you noticed how Michelle smiles just like Nathan used to?" Margaret observed one afternoon. "I have. And she has the same curiosity he had too. Look how she pays attention to everything." "It's amazing how family traits repeat." "It's Michael's DNA showing up again," said Jessica. "He's still present through the children." When Michelle turned 1, the family organized a special party in the garden. It was a tradition they had created. Every important date was celebrated under Michael's tree. "Michelle, this is your great-grandfather's tree," Nathan said, holding his daughter near the trunk. "One day you'll understand the special story of our family." Michelle stretched out her little hand to touch the bark of the tree, as if understanding it was something important. "I think she already knows it's special," observed Emily. "All the children in this family are special," said Margaret, "because they were born from conscious love." That night, Margaret was organizing a family photo album when she found the old letters that Michael had written. She reread her son's words and smiled, realizing how everything had unfolded exactly as he had dreamed. "Michael, we did it," she whispered to the letters. "We built the family you dreamed of, and now it's growing even more." On Michelle's 2nd birthday, Nathan made an announcement that left the whole family ecstatic. "Everyone, Emily and I have some news to share." "What is it?" asked Margaret eagerly. "We're having another baby." Margaret, Jessica, and even little Michelle clapped their hands. "When?" asked Jessica. "In October," replied Emily, beaming. "And do we know if it's a boy or a girl?" Margaret wanted to know. "It's a boy," said Nathan, "and he'll be named Nathan, like me and my great-grandfather." "Another Nathan in the family," said Margaret emotionally. The tradition continues. The tradition continues and the family grows, confirmed Jessica. 8 months later, Margaret was again at the hospital, holding her second great-grandson in her arms. "Nathan Wilson Brown," she said, reading the baby's bracelet. "Welcome to the family, little Nathan." The baby opened his eyes and seemed to look directly at Margaret. "He has great-grandfather's eyes," observed Nathan emotionally. "He has the eyes of all the Nathans in the family," corrected Margaret. "This is our trademark." Emily was beaming in the hospital bed. "Margaret, now we have a complete family, a girl and a boy. And plenty of love to share among everyone," added Jessica, who had arrived with Michelle in her arms. Michelle looked at her little brother with curiosity. "Brother," she said, one of the few words she already knew how to speak. "That's right, my princess," said Nathan. "This is your little brother." Back at home, Margaret observed the busy routine of the house full of children. Michelle ran through the garden while little Nathan slept peacefully in his crib. Emily and Nathan took turns with the care, and Jessica seemed to have regained 10 years of youth looking after her grandchildren. "Margaret, are you happy?" Jessica asked one afternoon as they watched the children play. "Happier than I ever imagined I could be," Margaret replied sincerely. "Who would have thought that a visit to the cemetery would change our lives forever?" "It wasn't a visit to the cemetery," corrected Margaret. "It was Michael introducing us to each other." "Do you really believe that?" "I completely believe it. That meeting wasn't by chance. It was planned by him from heaven." 5 years later, Margaret was 85 years old and proudly watched the growth of her great-grandchildren. Michelle, now 7 years old, was a talkative and curious girl who loved hearing stories about the family. Nathan, at 5 years old, was an affectionate boy who was protective of his sister. "Grandma Margaret, tell the story of great-grandfather Michael again," Michelle asked one afternoon. "Which part of the story do you want to hear, my princess?" "The part about how he created our family." Margaret smiled and began to tell again the story that the children never tired of hearing. "Once upon a time there was a very good man named Michael. He was sick and knew he was going to heaven, but before leaving he wanted to give a very special gift to his mom." Little Nathan listened attentively, even though he already knew the story by heart. "And then he asked Aunt Jessica to take care of the baby," Nathan asked at his favorite part of the story. "That's right, and Aunt Jessica, who is now our Grandma Jessica, accepted because she had a very generous heart." "And then you met Daddy when he was a baby," continued Michelle. "I did, and it was love at first sight. I knew he was my little grandson even before I knew he was my actual grandson." "And now we're a big family?" asked Nathan. "Now we're a huge and very happy family," confirmed Margaret. That evening, Nathan, the father, sought out Margaret for a private conversation. "Grandma, I need to talk to you about something." "What is it, my love?" "Emily and I were talking about the future, about when you and Mom Jessica get older." Margaret felt a twinge of worry. "And what did you decide?" "We decided that we want to take care of you just like you took care of me. When the time comes, you'll live with us. You'll have all the affection in the world, and the children will learn about respecting and caring for their elders." Margaret was moved. "Nathan, that's very generous, but you don't have an obligation." "Of course we do. Not a legal obligation, but an obligation of love. You gave us a family. Now it's our turn to take care of the family." "And Emily agrees?" "It was her idea. She said she learned from me that family takes care of family no matter what." Margaret hugged Nathan tightly. "You really learned the lessons we tried to teach." "We learned because you taught by example, not just with words." 2 years later, Margaret began to feel that her energy wasn't what it used to be. At 87 years old, she was still lucid and independent, but she noticed she needed more help with some tasks. "Jessica, I think the time is coming," she said one morning. "Time for what?" "To accept Nathan and Emily's help, to go live with them in the big house." Jessica, now 65 years old, had also noticed they were needing more care. "Are you sure?" "I am. And you know why?" "Because I want to be close to the children. I want to watch them grow up. I want to be an active part of their lives." "Then let's talk with them." When Nathan learned of the decision, he was overjoyed. "That's wonderful. The kids will love having their grandmothers living with us." "Are you sure it won't be too much work?" asked Margaret. "Margaret, you took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn to take care of you," Nathan said affectionately. "And we kids will help too," declared Michelle, who was already 9 years old. "I can read stories to the grandmothers when they're tired. And I can draw pictures for them," added Nathan, who was 7. The move was smooth and natural. Margaret and Jessica occupied 2 rooms in the main house near the children's bedroom. The family routine easily adapted to the new setup. Margaret loved waking up to the sound of the children getting ready for school. Jessica became the official storyteller at bedtime. And all meals were family meals at the big table in the dining room. "Grandma Margaret, are you happy living with us?" Michelle asked one evening. "Very happy, my princess. This is the best time of my life." "Even though you're the oldest?" Margaret laughed at the girl's honesty. "Exactly because I'm the oldest. When you get older, you learn to value the special moments with family more." "And what are the most special moments?" "This one right here, talking with you before bed, watching you and your brother grow up, being part of your lives. Grandma, when I grow up and have children, will they be part of our family too?" "Of course they will. Our family will always keep growing, always welcoming new people with love. Like how you welcomed Mom Emily. Like we welcomed Mom Emily." 1 year later, Michelle was 10 years old when she asked a question that surprised the whole family. "Daddy, can I do a project about our family for school?" "Of course, Princess." "What kind of project?" "The teacher asked us to make a family tree, but our tree is different from the others." Nathan became thoughtful. "How is it different?" "Well, there's great-grandfather Michael, who I never met, but he's important. There's Grandma Margaret, who isn't Mom's blood grandmother, but is a grandmother of the heart. There's Grandma Jessica, who is Dad's mother, but also Grandma Margaret's daughter. It's kind of complicated." Emily laughed at her daughter's explanation. "It really is a special family tree." "How about we make a love tree instead of a family tree?" suggested Margaret. "How would that work? A tree where we show how each person came into our family through love, not just through blood." "Yes," Michelle got excited. "I can explain to the class how our family was formed." "And you feel comfortable explaining our story?" asked Nathan, concerned. "I feel proud of our story, Daddy. Our family is special because it was built with a lot of love." On the day of the project presentation, the whole family went to school to support Michelle. She had made a colorful poster showing how each person connected to the family through bonds of love. "This is my family," Michelle began her presentation. "It's different because it was built by love, not just by blood ties. It all started with my great-grandfather Michael, who, even knowing he was going to heaven, wanted to leave a gift of love for his mother, my great-grandmother Margaret. He asked a very good nurse, my grandmother Jessica, to have a baby for him. When my dad Nathan was born, my great-grandmother Margaret and my grandmother Jessica met and decided to form a family together. They chose each other to be mother and daughter of the heart. My dad grew up with lots of love from both of them, and when he became an adult, he met my mom Emily. She also fell in love with our family and became part of it. Now it's just me and my brother Nathan, and our family keeps growing. We all live together, we all love each other, and we all take care of one another. Our family taught me that love is more important than rules, that caring is more important than obeying, and that being together is the best thing in the world." The whole class applauded when Michelle finished. Several children asked questions about what it was like to have such a large and close-knit family. "Your family is really cool," said one classmate. "Everyone genuinely likes each other." "That's why we're happy," Michelle replied. On the way home, Margaret was beaming with pride. "Michelle, you spoke beautifully about our family." "Thank you, great-grandma. I like telling our story because it's special." "And do you understand why it's special?" "I do. Because it shows that love can create any kind of family we want." That evening, Margaret was sitting on the porch looking at Michael's tree, now a mature and leafy tree, when Jessica joined her. "What are you thinking about?" asked Jessica. "I'm thinking that Michael achieved much more than he imagined when he planned our family." "How so?" "He wanted to give me a grandchild. but he ended up creating a dynasty of love that will pass from generation to generation. That's true. Michelle and Nathan already know how to build families based on love, and they'll teach that to their children, who will teach it to their children. Michael's legacy will last forever. Margaret looked at the house full of light, where she could see Nathan helping his son with homework, Emily reading to Michelle and hear the children's laughter. "Jessica, do you regret anything we did?" "I don't regret anything." "And you?" "Me neither. Every decision we made brought us here, to this happiness. We're really very lucky. It's not luck, Jessica. It's deserving. We fought for our love. We took care of our family. We made the right choices. You're right. We deserve all this happiness." 2 years later, on Michelle's 12th birthday, the family organized a special party. It was also the 20th anniversary of Michael's tree. "Everyone, I want to make a special toast," said Nathan during the party. Everyone raised their glasses of juice in the children's case. A toast to Michael, who 20 years ago planted the seed of this family. A toast to all of us who nurtured this seed and turned it into a leafy tree of love. And a toast to the future, which will be built with the same love we learned from each other. "To Michael," everyone toasted together. "To love," added Michelle. "To family," concluded little Nathan. That night, after the children fell asleep, the adults stayed talking in the garden. "Margaret, can I make a confession?" said Emily. "Of course, dear." "When I met Nathan, I was intimidated by the bond between you three. I thought I'd never be able to be part of such a close family. And now? Now I know the secret isn't about joining the family that already exists. The secret is building the family together, every day with small gestures of love." "You learned it perfectly," Jessica said affectionately. "I learned from the best teachers," Emily replied, looking at Margaret and Jessica. "And now you're teaching those lessons to Michelle and Nathan," observed Margaret. "We're all teaching family as a collective project." Nathan looked around the group and smiled. "You know what moves me the most? Seeing how each generation of our family becomes better than the previous one." "How so?" asked Margaret. "You raised Dad Michael with lots of love. He planned our family with even more love. You two raised me with multiplied love. Emily and I are raising Michelle and Nathan with all this accumulated love. Each generation receives more love and has more love to give." "It's like a chain of love that only grows," observed Emily. "Exactly," confirmed Nathan. Margaret looked at Michael's tree, its leaves gently swaying in the evening breeze. "Michael, did you hear?" she whispered. "Your family keeps growing in love." The following year, Margaret began to feel her time was coming to an end. At 90 years old, she maintained her clarity and affection for everyone, but her body was growing more fragile. "Jessica, I want to talk with you about some important things." "What is it?" "I want to make sure everything is organized for when I pass." "Margaret, don't talk like that. Jessica, I'm 90 years old. It's natural for me to think about these things. And I want to pass in peace, knowing our family is protected." "What do you want to organize?" "I want to make sure you are financially well, that Nathan and Emily know where all the important documents are, and that the children will have the resources to study. All of that has been organized for years." "I know. But I also want to make sure you know how important you all are to me." "Margaret, we know." "Jessica, you saved my life when you brought Nathan to me. You gave me a daughter when I needed it most. You built with me the most beautiful family I could have dreamed of. You saved my life too. You gave me a home, a mother, a family. And now I want you all to continue being happy after I'm gone. We will continue, but you're not leaving so soon. When I do go, I want you to plant a rose bush next to Michael's tree so that we both can look after the family together." "It will be a beautiful rose bush," promised Jessica with tears in her eyes. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Margaret did not wake up. She passed away in her sleep, in peace, surrounded by the family she loved so much. The wake was a moving event with people from all stages of Margaret's life paying their respects. Clients, employees, neighbors, friends. Everyone had stories to tell about Margaret's kindness and generosity. Grandma Margaret taught everyone that family isn't just about blood, said Michelle during her speech at the wake. She taught that family is choice, it's love, it's care. She built the most beautiful family I know, added little Nathan, even at just 9 years old, showing impressive maturity. Margaret was my mother, my friend, my inspiration, said Jessica. She taught me that it's never too late to start over, that it's never too late to love. She was the best grandmother a grandchild could have, declared Nathan. She taught me that true love is the one we choose, that we cultivate, that we protect. And she was the mother-in-law every daughter-in-law dreams of having, concluded Emily. She welcomed me into the family with so much affection that I felt loved from the very first day. At the burial ceremony, the family planted the rosebush Margaret had requested next to Michael's tree. It was a white rosebush, a symbol of the purity of the love she had cultivated throughout her life. "Now you two are together watching over us," whispered Jessica, gently touching the petals of the first rose that had bloomed. In the months that followed, the family went through the natural grieving process, but always supporting one another. Jessica took on the role of family matriarch, and everyone came together even more to honor Margaret's memory. "Grandma Jessica, is great-grandma Margaret in heaven with great-grandpa Michael?" asked Michelle one afternoon. "Yes, my princess, and they are very happy seeing how our family remains united and full of love." "And they're still watching over us?" "They are, every day, through the love they planted in our hearts." 1 year after Margaret's passing, the family organized a special celebration in her memory. It was a joyful party, just as Margaret would have wanted it. "I want to read a letter I found in Great-Grandma Margaret's room," said Nathan during the celebration. "My dear family, if you are reading this, it means I have already departed to be with Michael. Do not be sad for too long. Life is meant to be lived with joy. I want you to know that the years I spent with you were the happiest of my life. You gave me more love than I ever dreamed of receiving. Jessica, my dear daughter, thank you for accepting to be my family. You are the daughter I always wanted and the best companion I could wish for. Nathan, my beloved grandson, you surpassed all the dreams that Michael had for you. Continue being this wonderful man you have become. Emily, my dear daughter-in-law, thank you for loving our family and for expanding our circle of love. Michelle and Nathan, my precious great-grandchildren, you are the future of our family. Keep the stories I told you and pass them on to your children. Do not let my departure sadden you for too long. Continue being the happy family you have always been. Continue taking care of each other. Continue choosing love every day. I will always be with you, in the smiles you share, in the hugs you give each other, in the stories you tell about our family. Take care of Michael's tree and my rosebush. They are the symbol of our eternal love. With all my love, forever, Margaret." When Nathan finished reading the letter, the whole family was crying and laughing at the same time. "She was right," said Jessica. "We must continue being happy. That's what she wanted." "And we will continue," promised Emily. "Our family will keep growing and spreading love." "Forever," the children agreed. 5 years later, Michelle was 17 and little Nathan was 15. The family had continued to thrive, always honoring the memory of Margaret and Michael. "Mom, Dad, I have some news to share," said Michelle during dinner. "What is it, Princess?" asked Nathan. "I got accepted into medical school." The whole family celebrated. Michelle had followed in her father and great-grandfather's footsteps, choosing to care for people. "What specialty do you want to pursue?" asked Emily. "Pediatrics. I want to care for children just like you cared for me." "I'm so proud of you," said Jessica emotionally. "Your great-grandmother Margaret would be overjoyed." "And you, Nathan?" the father asked his son. "Have you decided what you want to do when you grow up?" "I want to be a psychologist," replied the boy. "I want to help families understand and love each other better." "Like our family?" asked Michelle. "Just like our family. I want to teach other people what I learned here at home." Jessica looked at those two young people who had become such special individuals and felt her heart overflowing with pride. "You two are going to make a difference in the world," she said. "We learned from the best examples," replied Michelle. "Our family always taught that love can heal, can build, can transform," added Nathan. "And you will carry that lesson to other families," observed Emily. Exactly, confirmed Michelle. We're going to spread the kind of love we learned here. That night, Jessica was in the garden looking at Michael's tree and Margaret's rose bush when the two young people joined her. "Grandma Jessica, what are you thinking about?" asked Michelle. "I'm thinking about how our family has grown and transformed over the years." "How so?" "When I was young, I was alone in the world. I had no family, no future prospects. Then I met Michael and everything changed." "And then you met great-grandmother Margaret." "Exactly. And every person who came into our family brought more love, more joy, more possibilities." "And now we're going to do the same thing," said Nathan. "We're going to take our love to other people. You will create your own families, and those families will be based on the love you learned here," said Jessica. "And the cycle will continue," observed Michelle. "Forever," agreed Jessica. 3 years later, Michelle was in her 3rd year of medical school when she met Peter, a young engineering student who was fascinated by her family's story. "Is your family really that close?" he asked during a date. "Yes, they are, always have been. I've learned that family is about choosing to be together, not about obligation." "My parents separated when I was a child. I've never seen an example of a harmonious family like yours." "Would you like to meet my family?" "I'd love to." When Michelle brought Peter home, he was welcomed with the characteristic warmth of the Wilson family. "Peter, welcome to our home," said Nathan during dinner. "Michelle has told us a lot about you." "Thank you for having me. Michelle always speaks of you all with so much love." "That's how we talk about each other," said Emily, "with love and respect." "And how did you manage to build such a close family?" Peter asked curiously. "With a lot of dialogue, a lot of forgiveness, and a conscious choice to be together," replied Jessica. "Conscious choice?" "Yes," explained Nathan. "Every day we choose to be a family. We're not together just because we were born into it, but because we decide to be together." Peter was impressed by the family's wisdom. "I never thought of family as a daily choice. It's the most important choice we make," said Michelle, "and the one that brings us the most happiness." In the following months, Peter became a constant presence in the house. The family naturally embraced him, and he responded with affection and respect. "Peter, may I ask you a personal question?" Jessica said one afternoon. "Of course, Mrs. Jessica." "How do you feel being part of our family?" "I feel at home for the first time in my life," he answered sincerely. "You've taught me what it truly means to be a family. And would you like to officially become part of this family?" Peter understood what Jessica was asking. "I would love to. I love Michelle, and I love all of you too." "Then you have our blessing," said Jessica, smiling. 6 months later, Peter proposed to Michelle during a family gathering in the garden, under Michael's tree and beside Margaret's rose bush. "Michelle, I want to be part of your family forever. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Michelle replied emotionally. "Of course, yes." The whole family celebrated the engagement with joy. "Another member for our family," said Nathan happily. "And one who arrived with so much love," added Emily. "Just like all of us did," observed young Nathan. "The cycle continues," said Jessica, moved. A year later, Michelle and Peter got married in the same garden where Nathan and Emily had married. The family tradition was to hold important celebrations always near Michael's tree and Margaret's rosebush. During the ceremony, Michelle made sure to include a tribute to her great-grandparents. "Michael and Margaret, who are in heaven watching over us, thank you for creating this wonderful family. Peter and I promise to continue the legacy of love that you started." Peter, in turn, spoke about how he had found not just a wife, but an entire family. "I promise to love and care not only for Michelle, but for this whole family that has welcomed me so warmly." 2 years later, Michelle gave birth to a boy who would be named Michael, in honor of the great-great-grandfather who had started the whole family story. "Grandma Jessica, now we have a Michael in the family again," said Michelle, placing the baby in Jessica's arms. "A Michael who will grow up knowing our whole family history," replied Jessica emotionally. "And who will continue spreading love wherever he goes," added Peter. When little Michael turned 1, young Nathan also had news to share. "Everyone, I want to introduce someone special," he said, arriving home with a friendly, dark-haired young woman. "This is Bethany, my girlfriend." Bethany was welcomed with the same warmth that Peter had received years before. "Bethany, Nathan told us you study psychology too," said Emily. "Yes, we met in college. He always spoke about his family with such affection that I became curious to meet you all." "And what did you think?" asked Jessica. "I thought you were exactly as he described, a family full of love and unity." "Nathan has a tendency to idealize us a bit," joked Michelle. "He doesn't idealize at all," defended Bethany. "You really are special. I've never seen a family that gets along so well." "It's because we choose to get along," explained Peter. "We learned that family is a project we build together." "Just like I learned from Nathan," said Bethany. "He taught me that love is a decision we make every day." 6 months later, Nathan announced that he was also engaged. "Bethany and I want to get married here at home in the garden, just like Michelle and Peter," he said. "Of course," the whole family agreed. "It's a Wilson family tradition. And after the wedding, we want to build our house here on the property too," added Bethany. "If you'll allow it, of course." "It would be wonderful to have the whole family living nearby," said Jessica. "Just like in the old days when great-grandmother Margaret was alive," observed Michelle. "She would be happy to know the tradition continues," said Emily. At Nathan and Bethany's wedding, the whole family was present, including little Michael, now 2 years old and running around the garden. "Grandma Jessica, our family keeps growing," observed Michelle during the party. "And I hope it continues growing for many generations," replied Jessica. "It will continue. We all learn to love and build a family. Our children will learn too. And our children's children." "Forever," the two agreed. 3 years later, Nathan and Bethany had a girl who would be named Margaret, in honor of the great-great-grandmother. Now the family had 2 young children, Michael, 5 years old, and Margaret, a newborn. "Now we have Michael and Margaret again in the family," said Jessica emotionally as she held her granddaughter. "The circle closes," observed Michelle. "And opens again for the next generations," added Nathan. "Our family is really special," said Peter. "We managed to keep the love through all generations." "It's because we all learned the main lesson," said Bethany. "That family is about love, not about rules or obligations." That night, Jessica was in the garden watching the 2 children playing when Michelle joined her. "Grandma, are you happy?" "Happier than I ever dreamed I could be," replied Jessica. "I have a beautiful family, wonderful grandchildren, healthy great-grandchildren. And do you think great-grandmother Margaret and great-grandfather Michael would be proud of the family we built?" "I'm sure they are. They dreamed of a family full of love, and that's exactly what we created. And will it continue being like this forever?" "It will. Because we all learned that true love is what we choose, what we cultivate, what we pass on." Jessica looked at Michael's tree, now majestic and full of flowers, and at Margaret's rose bush, which bloomed exuberantly. "Michael, Margaret, thank you for starting all this," she whispered. "Look how beautiful our family is. Look how you managed to create an eternal legacy of love." A gentle breeze swayed the leaves of the tree and the rose petals, as if it were a loving response from heaven. 5 years later, when little Michael was 10 years old and little Margaret was 5, the family organized a big gathering to celebrate the 40 years of Michael's tree. "Everyone, I want to tell a story to the children," said Jessica, gathering the whole family in the garden. "Once upon a time there was a very good man named Michael, who, even knowing he was going to heaven, wanted to leave a very special gift for his mother." "I know this story," shouted little Michael. "It's our family story." "That's right, my love, it's our story, and you and Margaret are part of it now." "And will our children be part of it too?" asked little Margaret. "Of course they will," replied Michelle. "Our family will always grow, there will always be room for more love." "And will they live here near the tree too?" Michael wanted to know. "If they want to, yes," said Nathan. "This will always be the Wilson family home." "I want my children to live here," declared Margaret. "This is where our story is." "And me too," agreed Michael. "I want them to know Grandfather Michael's tree and Grandmother Margaret's rosebush." Jessica looked at those two children who carried the names of the family's founders and felt a deep emotion. "You two will be the guardians of our story," she said. "What is a guardian?" asked Margaret. "It's someone who takes care, who protects, who doesn't let us forget," explained Bethany. "Then I will be a very good guardian," promised Margaret. "And me too," promised Michael. That night, after the children fell asleep, the adults stayed talking in the garden. "Do you think we managed to fulfill Michael's dream?" asked Jessica. "We achieved much more than he ever dreamed," replied Nathan. "He wanted to give a grandchild to Grandma Margaret. We ended up creating an entire dynasty." "A dynasty based on love," observed Michelle. "And one that will continue for many generations," added Peter. "Because all of us learned to plant love and harvest happiness," said Bethany. Jessica looked around at all that gathered family and smiled. "You know what moves me the most?" she said. "What?" everyone asked. "It's that every person who joined this family brought more love, not less. Instead of dividing love, we multiplied it." "It's true," agreed Emily. "Every new member increases our capacity to love. And the children are learning this from a young age," observed Nathan. "They will carry this lesson for the rest of their lives. And they will pass it to their children too," said Michelle. "Michael's legacy is eternal," concluded Jessica. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this moving story about how love can build true families. Leave your sincere comment about which part touched your heart the most. What lesson from the Wilson family would you take into your own life? Don't forget to like if the story moved you and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories of overcoming and family love. Your participation is very important to us.